Hello and welcome to Lessons in Leadership. In fact, this is the last one, best one of 2025. So friends, this week we're moving on to chapter 24 in our study series of John Maxwell's book, Leadership Gold. And the title of this chapter is People Will Summarize Your Life in One Sentence. So pick it now. So whether we like it or not, every life gets summarized. Every leader gets remembered, and every story gets told, often in a single sentence. So in chapter 24, John delivers one of the most sobering and empowering leadership truths of all. People will summarize your life in one sentence. Pick it now. So that kind of gave me pause just for a second to think about 2025. And I thought to myself, how would somebody summarize what I've done in 2025? How would they tell that, right? By my actions, by my attitude, by my beliefs, by my habits, by my patterns? How does all of that work? But basically, at the end of the year and at the end of our careers, people are going to, and at the end of our lives, for that matter, people are going to summarize our lives, and it's going to come down to basically a sentence. So, what were you known for? What were you all about? So in order to grow in our leadership, right, it's not about our ego. It's not about being remembered or, being put on a pedestal. It's right. It's about intentionality. And John talks a lot about intentionality. In fact, one of my favorite courses that he does is called the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. And the first law is the law of intentionality. It means, putting our attention where we want it to go, putting our energy where we want it to go, in order to be able to get the outcome that we want. And hopefully that outcome that we do come up with is aligned with our God-given gifts and talents and what we were called to do. So legacy here doesn't begin at the end of life, right? It's formed by daily decisions, repeated habits, and consistent character. And leaders who don't define their legacy intentionally are basically just leaving it to chance. So John says legacy is being written every day. Many leaders assume legacy is something you think about later, after success, after recognition, after achievement. But legacy really is being written right now in how you treat people, how you respond under pressure, and how you steward your influence. So your legacy is shaped by these four things: the conversations you avoid or engage in. Number two, the standards you uphold or that you compromise. Number three, the people you lift up or the ones you overlook. And then four, the courage you show when it costs you something, right? The courage you show when it costs you something. Leadership isn't just about results, it's about remembrance. So let's talk about why leaders have to choose their legacy right now. So John's point is pretty simple by confronting this. If you don't choose what you want to be known for, others are going to choose it for you. And their version may not match your values. It may not match who you really are. So great leaders pause long enough to ask, what do I want people to say about me when I'm not in the room? What do I want my family to remember about me? And what do I want my team to carry forward because of my influence? Those are great questions. Let's go over those one more time. What do I want people to say about me when I'm not in the room? Right? What are the vast majority of people are going to say with you when you're not present, when you're not there, when you're not listening, when they know it's just them speaking their truth about who they think you are? The next one is, what do I want my family to remember? That one's huge. Okay, because everybody in your family is going to see you from a different perspective, right? Whether you're the spouse or whether you're the father or the grandfather or the grandmother or whatever whatever title that you hold within your family, what do you want them to remember about you? I got to thinking about that myself with my own family members, and I'm like, okay, what am I going to remember? What do I remember my grandfather for? What do I remember about my grandmother? What do I remember about my great grandmother? What am I going to remember about my father and about my mother? And then last, again, what do I want my team to carry forward because of my influence? So there's the thing, right? If everything relies on you, you didn't really influence anybody. But if you can take a mission, and you can take a vision, and your team can carry that forward when you're no longer in the picture, that's what's important. So these questions, these aren't sentimental questions, right? They're leadership questions. So let's talk about the areas that shape your one sentence legacy. Okay. Number one, character before confidence. Character before competence. So skills may open doors, but character is going to determine impact. People may admire what you've accomplished, but they're going to remember how you treated them. So your legacy will never be stronger than your integrity in your relationships. Number two, people over position. Titles fade fast. Roles change and organizations evolve, but people remember whether you believed in them, whether you invested in them, and whether you stood with them and by them. So leaders are remembered more for who they served than what they achieved. Boy, that one's huge. I think back about mentors I had along the way, and the relationships that I had with them, and how I revere each of those mentors along the way, their strengths and their weaknesses. And it makes me think about, how do I want people to remember me? Number three, faithfulness over fame. Biblical leadership isn't about being known. It's about being faithful to what God has called you to do. The leaders who leave the deepest imprint are those who consistently honor God with their work, even when no one is watching. So God measures legacy very differently than the world does. It's all about being faithful, right? I think I saw a quote put somewhere on the internet that said something like, we weren't called to be successful. We were called to be faithful. And I love that, right? But by being faithful, aren't we automatically successful? Yes, we are. Okay. So let's get into some key takeaways. I've got 5 of them for you from this chapter with John. The first one is legacy is shaped daily. It's not decided later. It's what you do on a daily basis. Number 2, your life will be summarized. Intentionally choose what matters. Okay, so that is the daily decision, the decisions that you make, right? Your legacy is just the sum total of the decisions you've made, what you were intentional about. Number 3, character outlives your accomplishments. Yes, yes, and yes, your accomplishments are quickly forgotten, but your character will live on. Number 4, the way you treat people determines how you're remembered. Yes, very much so. We can think about so many different examples in history of people in leadership and what they're remembered for, good, bad, or indifferent. And then number 5, faithfulness creates a legacy that endures. Yes, right. If it's a seed that God put in your heart and you're faithful to that mission, that's a legacy that endures. Okay, let's talk about a few reflection questions for you. Reflection questions for leaders. Number 1, if your life were summarized in one sentence today, what would it say? That's a really tough question to look yourself in the mirror and say, if your life was summarized in one sentence today, what would it say? Well, I guess that depends on who's saying it, doesn't it? Right? So maybe it'd be a good idea to ask yourself that question on what you think it is, but then maybe ask family members or people on your team what their opinion is. If they had to summarize your life in one sentence, what would it say? Be pretty interesting. Number 2, does that sentence reflect your values and your calling? Do you think that sentence actually reflects your values and your calling? Have you kind of lived up to what you'd like it to be, or have you kind of fallen short? Number 3, what habits or behaviors might be undermining the legacy you want? Okay. This is where rubber meets the road, right? Usually in leadership, we're the bottleneck in our own lives, in our business, in our personal lives, in our professional lives. We're the bottleneck. So what's the habit, or what are the behaviors that might be underlining you showing up as the best version of yourself, the version you'd like to be? Number 4, what would you change if you were fully committed to that one sentence? What would you change if you were fully committed to that one sentence? Great question. One of the things that I know that I'm focused on for 2026 is going back to Proverbs 3:5-6, right? Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean on it, not in your own understanding. And always acknowledge him and he'll make your path straight. That's something that I have failed to do miserably, right? Always trying to use my own personal power, right? I mean, of course, that's what all the gurus teach you to do, right? Isn't it? And that's the one thing that I would change, is to stop leaning so much on my own personal power and start to trust God more, start to tune in more to what my gifts and talents are and what he's actually called me to do, and be faithful to it. So I guess that would be it, right? Number 5, who are you intentionally investing in as part of your legacy? Great question. You're a leader. Who's following you, and who are you investing in that can take it forward? Of course, for me, that definitely my children. I want them to be able to take my experience and what I've taught them and take it to the next level, for sure. But you never always know who you impacted in a big way. You may not even know who you've impacted in a big way. And you might try to think back a little bit about it, but I think a great goal would be to try to intentionally invest in everybody that comes across your path in some way, big or small. Okay, let's take a look at some action steps. We got 5 of those too. Action step number 1, write your one sentence. So you're going to complete this statement. When my leadership journey is complete, I want to be remembered as someone who. When my leadership journey is complete, when my life is complete, I want to be remembered as someone who. You fill in the blank, whatever that may look like. I might say something like this, and this has changed for me over the years, but I might say something like this: my leadership journey is complete. I want to be remembered as someone who made a lot of mistakes, but in the end, finally figured out that I needed to trust in the Lord with all my heart, with all my soul. And I was able to use my gifts and talents and serve faithfully to be able to make this world a little bit easier for someone else. That's such a huge difference in what my statement might be. Now, I just made that up off the cuff, and I'm sure I can make that more eloquent and a little bit, smooth that out and make it a little bit better. But that's what it's really all about for me at this point, is to put aside, actually shed a lot of the things that I've learned, right? Taking those things and then refine it down to what actually really matters. And that's making the world a little bit better place and making it a little bit easier for somebody else, because life's not easy, right? We all know that life's not that easy. So my leadership has to be able to set a great example and to be able to think of other people, right? Think of a cause greater than myself and put my efforts there to try to help other people that are less fortunate or that are struggling or suffering, so on and so forth. Action step number 2, align your calendar. Your schedule reveals your priorities. Adjust it to reflect the legacy you want. Yes, yes, and yes. You always have time for what's most important. I like to say it this way: if I wanted to find what my 3 key objectives are for the year, personally and professionally, I will find time to do those things. And I will not include things that distract me from that in my calendar. You can always find time for what's important to you. Number 3, ask for feedback. Ask a trusted person or persons. Like King Solomon says, seek wise counsel. And ask them, what do you think people will remember most about me? You're going to get a lot of different answers. But if you ask enough people, you'll get a pretty clear picture of how other people see you right now. That's your legacy. And then it's sobering to determine whether or not that matches up with what you'd really like them to think. Number 4, lead with the end in mind. Before decisions, ask, does this move me closer to the legacy I want to leave? Okay. Does this move me closer to the legacy I want to leave? If the answer is no, then the decision that you're about to make should be a no. Simple as that. Number 5, live it daily. Legacy isn't built in grand moments, it's built in consistent obedience. It's such a simple concept, but so hard to do, to live it out daily, to live it out in every decision that you make. Matter of fact, I listened to a video on YouTube, and it was a former Navy SEAL, and he was talking about being a man, and he said, it's as simple as this. It comes down to the decisions that you make. If it doesn't fit your values, then it's a no. You just don't do it. No matter how tempting it may be, you just say no. You just don't do it. That's discipline, and that's hard work, but that's what it's all about. So closing thought. John Maxwell reminds us that legacy is inevitable, but impact is optional. You don't get to choose whether your life will be summarized, but you do get to choose what the summary will say. Hope you enjoyed this one. This was the last one for 2025. That was chapter 24 of our study series of Leadership Gold. And we actually only have 2 chapters left in this series. So we're going to pick those up here at the beginning of the new year, finish strong with this study series. Hope you enjoyed it. Happy New Year, and we'll see you next week.